This week in the news, World of Warcraft has broken a new record in PC gaming, and it's gone. Hey folks, this is Riker with a gaming news wrap-up video where we discuss the happenings of the week. This week's topics include highlights and new reveals from the Game Awards this week, World of Warcraft Shadowlands hitting record sales, Cyberpunk 2077 exploding onto the gaming landscape, and more. As always, discussion timestamps can be found in the video description below, but right before we skip ahead, just a quick reminder to ring that sub notification bell to be alerted to new Saturday episodes and stay up to date with gaming news highlights. Now, before we move on, just a quick word from this video's sponsor, NordPass. We all know that we're supposed to have a unique and complex password for every website and login that we have, but let's be honest, how many of us just reuse the same password or variations of the same password? Because who has the patience to memorize dozens of different logins or write them down in a book? And then when you try to up your password security game, you find yourself trying to log into an account over and over. Is it this password? No. Is it that one? No. Until you just get frustrated and start hitting reset password on every website you try to log into. Well, that was me until I started using a password manager. With a NordPass password manager, you only ever need to remember one password, and NordPass manages the rest for you. NordPass will store all your passwords, so whether you're on your PC or your phone or your laptop, you always have your virtual password book with you, so you can effortlessly log into any account anywhere. Want to log into your Steam account while at your friend's house? Just pop open NordPass on your phone, look up your password, and you're in. And NordPass currently has a special holiday deal going on. You can go to nordpass.com/Riker to get 70% off a 2-year plan plus 1 month free. That deal is only available this month though. So go to nordpass.com/RHYKKER to keep your passwords safe and organized. In our first story, the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake has been delayed. Originally set to release on January 21st, 2021, it's been pushed back to March 18th. Hopefully, they'll be using that time to fix the character models. On to our next topic, the Game Awards. For those who are unaware, the Game Awards were established in 2014, and they're an annual awards ceremony highlighting achievements in video gaming. The awards regularly see tens of millions of viewers and have become big enough that companies will take the opportunity to use that as a vehicle to reveal new trailers. This year, The Last of Us 2 won Game of the Year, but it was Ghosts of Tsushima that won the Player's Choice Award. That is a 100% publicly voted award that goes through 3 rounds of nominations and voting games against each other. Ghosts of Tsushima beat out 29 other games to win the Player's Choice Award. Also worthy of note is that Hades won Best Indie as well as Best Action Game. We also saw the release of the next Dragon Age official trailer. We still didn't get any gameplay, but we did get the voice of Varric, a medieval cyberpunk city, and Nero from Star Trek. I mean Shinzon from Star Trek. We also got the official teaser trailer for the next Mass Effect. No release date, the game is still in the early stages, but we can glean from the trailer that they picked a canon ending to the Mass Effect trilogy, and we're now at some point in the future. We also got the official announced trailer of Perfect Dark. While we have no real details, we know it's coming to Xbox and PC, there's no release date, and we know that the original Perfect Dark, released on Nintendo 64 back in 2000, was a spiritual successor to GoldenEye, featuring Bond-esque gadgets and a cyberpunk setting with aliens taking over the world via infiltration. We have no idea whether this is a remake, a sequel, a reboot, but based on what we're seeing, the setting seems almost like a near-future post-environmental apocalypse. It's certainly a fresh vision of a sci-fi setting for a video game. We also got the reveal of a new upcoming game that's going to be releasing in June, called Back 4 Blood, which is clearly, in spirit, Left 4 Dead 3. It's being made by Turtle Rock, the original developer of Left 4 Dead 1 and 2. Now, Valve still holds the rights for the Left 4 Dead franchise. Turtle Rock left Valve in 2009, and since then there's been word about a couple attempts at making Left 4 Dead 3 that ultimately got cancelled. So it looks like Turtle Rock took things into their own hands and made a game that is basically exactly Left 4 Dead 3 with just enough changes that a copyright lawyer can possibly argue this in court. And speaking of Left 4 Dead, we also got a new trailer for Warhammer 40k Darktide, which is basically the 40k version of Left 4 Dead, but more appropriately the 40k version of Vermintide. It's a 4-player co-op action game where you fight hordes of enemies. This game is set for release in 2021. Onto some World of Warcraft news. Blizzard announced this week that Shadowlands became the fastest selling PC game of all time. As of the first full day of Shadowlands launch, more than 3.7 million units had sold through globally, making it the fastest selling PC game of all time industry-wide. And what's interesting to note is that the previous record holder was Diablo 3 back in 2012. On its first day, it sold 3.5 million copies on PC. In its first week, Diablo 3 sold 6.3 million copies. As a point of comparison, the best ever PlayStation 4 launch was The Last of Us Part 2, which sold 4 million copies in 3 days. Now, considering World of Warcraft is a game that launched in 2004, it's pretty impressive that 16 years later, it can still pump out an expansion that is selling so well. But unfortunately, celebrations for World of Warcraft were short-lived, as Cyberpunk released this week and smashed World of Warcraft's record. With 8 million pre-orders, 4.72 million being on PC and 3.28 million being on console, Shadowlands' PC record of 3.7 was solidly defeated. An official launch trailer for the game went up this week, featuring quite a bit of Keanu Reeves, and the game itself has been getting great reviews by critics, averaging about 91 out of 100, with the most common complaint revolving around bugs. On Steam, user reviews are sitting at mostly positive, at about a 76%. I think most people were expecting an overwhelmingly positive, but when you have a game that is as hyped as Cyberpunk, there were definitely going to be people who would be disappointed. The game was being hyped way beyond what it was promising. People were thinking that the game was going to be more than what it is. And anytime that amount of hype is built up, there's nothing you can do. It's gonna lead to disappointment. But still, overall opinions on the game seem to lean towards positive, even amongst players, with again the bugs being the #1 complaint. But that's not the only record that Cyberpunk broke. It also broke the record for most concurrent players in a single player game on Steam, peaking at over 1 million concurrent players, a record previous held by Terraria at 486,000, and it's being regarded as the biggest Steam launch ever. But the launch wasn't without controversy. An article came out earlier in the week explaining that people prone to seizures could experience some trouble when playing Cyberpunk. And while the game does have a seizure warning, it's only within the end-user license agreement, buried in that 40-page digital document that everyone diligently reads. The Cyberpunk team replied to this by stating, quote, "Thank you for bringing this up. We're working on adding a separate warning in the game, aside from the one that exists in the EULA. Regarding a more permanent solution, the dev team is currently exploring that and will be implementing it as soon as possible." And then on Friday, a patch released that altered some of the problematic flashing lights that could induce seizures to make them less likely to do so. Now, I know a lot of you folks have been playing Cyberpunk, and my question to you is, what are your preliminary thoughts? Sound off in the comments. On to some Path of Exile news. Heist League ended this week, abruptly and prematurely. Players were confused to receive an in-game warning that the league is ending soon. And the popular theory is that back when GGG decided to extend the league, they did not extend the automated timer to end the league. Chris Wolcen, however, was quick to take to Reddit to state, "We are working on fixing this." And then they fixed this. And speaking of fixing things, onto some Wolcen news. The devs have been hard at work releasing a number of hotfixes since the launch of their big patch. Quote, "Our team is actively working on fixing as many bugs and issues as possible. Thank you for your detailed reports. Regarding possible exploits, several were already identified and fixed. They will always be treated with extreme severity. Preventing exploits is and will remain one of our priorities, so please report any exploit you can find. We are now able to publish updates and hotfixes more often. 3 hotfixes have already been published since the release of Blood Trail. Further updates will be made as we fix issues and add improvements." This was a big issue back when the game launched. Due to whatever deal they had worked out with their server hosts, they could only push through 1 patch a week. This is what made it take so long to fix some of these big problems. Now, if you saw my video with my first impressions on Blood Trail, you know that I didn't yet get to endgame. As a follow-up, I now have gone to endgame. My overall impressions are pretty much the same as what's in there. I will add, however, that I do like the way that Blood Trail is integrated into the endgame. It's a positive addition to the endgaming experience. It makes things feel a bit less repetitive, keeps things a bit more interesting, but my biggest gripe really is about the bugs. This game launched in a very buggy state. Then over the course of several weeks and a few months, they got the game into a pretty good state. But then with the release of Blood Trail, more bugs were reintroduced. Not nearly as bad as at launch, but still bad enough that some people were getting turned off again. So it's really great to see that the devs are able to implement these hotfixes, these patches faster, and that they have been doing so, not just for bugs, but also for balance patches. So with these hotfixes that we've been seeing, we've seen some bug fixes, we saw some balance passes, we saw right away an overpowered passive node get nerfed. So while I'm disappointed that it launched with all those bugs, I'm glad to see that the devs are following up very quickly. On to some Diablo news. Last week we reported that for Diablo Immortal, some people who had pre-registered were noticing their phone telling them your device is not compatible or otherwise receiving some form of error. Well, Diablo community lead Pez Radar updated us. Quote, "As you may have noticed, we have adjusted the minimum requirements for Diablo Immortal since we announced back in 2018. Our intention with these adjustments is to ensure that users who partake in future testing phases have the best possible experience while playing the game. We have honed in on a set of hardware specifications that we hope to receive some thorough testing in upcoming development phases, and that is reflected in the latest requirements. While I can't promise anything, I will say that the team is looking at expanding minimum requirements in the future and is always looking at ways to help bring Diablo Immortal to more devices as we get closer to launch." And lastly, in Diablo news, we're still expecting by the end of the year another quarterly update for Diablo 4. Today is the 12th of December. The end of the quarter is on the 31st of December, and Blizzard does typically release their quarterly updates at the end of the month. However, the 31st is New Year's Eve, and I believe throughout that week, Blizzard employees tend to be on vacation. Friday the 25th is Christmas, and the 24th is Christmas Eve. So those likely as well are not going to be working days. It's entirely possible that that week as well will be a week off for Blizzard employees, so we could potentially be looking at next week as the release of the Diablo 4 quarterly update, with the most likely date being Friday the 18th. However, in this day and age of working from home, who knows how that might change vacation scheduling. And that's going to wrap up this week's video. But do be sure to have checked out last week's video in which we speculate on why an update for Diablo Immortal might be coming. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you like what you see on this channel and want to support the creation of more content, you can consider pledging on YouTube or Patreon and unlocking behind the scenes content, monthly virtual hangouts, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please share it. Check out these other videos and subscribe to join Rikers Raiders for more gaming content.